Hey everybody, new video. I met a couple people recently who were using Kratom, and we were talking about it a little bit, and I don't know that, or I didn't at the time know that much about it, and so it was just kind of a thing that I thought I should really look into, and so here's a little video of what I found out. So Kratom is the name of a tree. It's the leaf of the tree and like the powder or the tea that's made from the leaf of this tree. The tree is native to Africa and to Southeast Asia, and the varieties differ quite a bit in how much of the chemicals that the tree produces. So some of the trees are much more potent than others. The tree is related to the same tree that is the coffee plant, so it's the same family, although the coffee, I think, is a smaller tree and the kratom tree is a bigger tree. But so inside the leaf, which is what you eat, the powdered or tea or whatever, are like 40 different what are called indole alkaloids. And alkaloid just refers to the fact that it contains some nitrogen atoms, and indole is a particular ring shape. So the main indole alkaloid of the 40 some that are in the kratom is indole alkaloid called mitragynine, and mitragynine can be like 66% or 12%. It varies from the different. Thailand has higher potency ones versus African ones, as far as I understand it. So the effect of the mitragynine is diverse. So it not only stimulates opioid receptors, of which there are three. Mu, kappa, and delta, or mu, but usually we talk about the mu, and that's the one that really is most important for chemical dependency as far as the development of craving and withdrawal symptoms and those sorts of things. Now, it turns out that there's a small amount of this other indole alkaloid called 7-hydroxy mitragynine as well. And so you can look this up on Wikipedia, but it wasn't enough, so I went into some research studies and stuff that I have access to, and it turns out that that your body turns the mitragynine into 7-hydroxy mitragynine, and that is actually pretty potent. So compared to morphine, 7-hydroxy mitragynine is actually about 13 times more potent at the mu receptor than morphine. So it's a fairly potent opioid. Now, buprenorphine is like 40 times as potent at the mu receptor. So morphine is actually not that potent of an opioid compared to like fentanyl and other semi-synthetic and synthetic opioids, and even some like things that are not chemically directly related to opioids, such as the mitragynine, can also be very potent at the receptor. So this effect of the mitragynine and the 7-hydroxy mitragynine is interesting because at low doses it seems to have mostly a stimulant effect and pretty mild opioid effect, but then as the dose increases, and maybe because your body converts a lot of the mitragynine over to 7-hydroxy mitragynine, the opioid effect becomes the more dominant effect. And it seems that possibly the 7-hydroxy mitragynine and the other alkaloids are not as potent a respiratory depressant as some other traditional opioids, so maybe it's a little bit safer. That being said, the kratom has been a controlled substance in Thailand since the 1940s, so they have been struggling with people becoming addicted to and having complications of the use of kratom for like a long time. 80 years almost it's been a controlled substance. Of course, the tree's been around since the dawn of man, so people have probably been using it for thousands of years, just like opium. Opium's been used for a very long time. So, as I said, it's a drug of abuse in Thailand. It's actually the #1 drug of abuse in Thailand. So it's kratom first, then meth, then cannabis in Thailand. And so it seems that right now, especially younger people in Thailand, use this drink called 4 times 100 or 4x 100 or 4 by 100. Of course, it's in Thai, so I'm not sure what the translation is. So this is kratom, dextromethorphan, which is a common ingredient in cough suppressants, which also kind of stimulates the mu receptor, and then Coca-Cola, and I guess it's a drink. I guess not that different from the syrup that rappers drink. I don't know. So in the United States, the DEA wanted to make it illegal back in like 2016, but without congressional action, it's not really a controlled substance on the federal side. Although, as far as I can tell, 6 states have made it illegal. So a lot of the states it's still illegal or non-controlled. It's a drug of concern, I guess, by the DEA, but it's not federally. So it depends on the state whether it's actually illegal. And so, as I said, it stimulates a number of different mu receptors. Also has a stimulant effect. The half-life is pretty short, so like 3 hours as far as a half-life, so that you have to take it multiple times a day. Otherwise, especially at higher doses, you go through opioid withdrawal. And that is kind of the summary of the kind of the legal and pharmacological and historical perspective. So people use it, a lot of people use it. The majority of people, at least in the United States, who use it to get off of opioids, which is fine. There's a few problems and concerns I have, and that's really what I want to talk about. #1 is that buprenorphine, methadone, kratom, whatever, may help control withdrawal, but it doesn't address kind of the fundamental issue that is the craving to use a chemical and the chemical solution to problems, stress, etc. If you don't address those, it's an incomplete solution to the problem. And so when people are using kratom to kick opioids, if it works for you, and if you can't get into a methadone clinic, or you can't, for whatever reason, you lack insurance, or Suboxone doesn't work for you, or whatever, it seems to be fairly helpful. But I don't want people to think of kratom or buprenorphine or anything as recovery in pill form. That is not the most effective way to approach a chemical dependency problem. Furthermore, kratom, because it has some stimulant effects, probably has a more complicated withdrawal than just a straight opioid withdrawal. So, although it's difficult to get that much information from where I am, and the very few kratom users or kratom, I guess users is the fine way to say it. When you come off of methadone, for example, which is a complicated medication that has both opioid and other effects, lots of people struggle with severe depression. So when people are getting off of methadone or switching from methadone to buprenorphine, I typically want them to start an antidepressant, because the depression is so pronounced when you're getting off of methadone. And so my concern is, because of the complicated nature of kratom with its 40 different indole alkaloids, and of the specific one that's most prominent, which is the mitragynine, having stimulant effects, you're going to have potentially like a methamphetamine-like depression, fatigue, whatever, getting off of the mitragynine. So plus, the final thing is, it's not covered by insurance. So especially here in the state of Hawaii, where virtually everybody qualifies for insurance, either through their employer or through Medicaid, it's just expensive. You have to use it multiple times a day, which kind of reinforces the chemical dependency, kind of habitual use of a chemical. Every 3 or 4 hours, you got to take more of the kratom, and that just kind of, reinforces that idea that, I need chemical. And so, if you can't get access to anything else, apparently many people have used kratom to get off of heroin or other opioids. There are some issues with it: expense, the fact that it has a short half-life, the fact that it hits other receptors in your body that can make the withdrawal off of kratom more complicated than like a pure opioid like buprenorphine. So that's just a quick summary of kratom. Please post some comments or questions if you have them. I'll see what I can do as far as answering your questions. Thanks so much. Have a good weekend.